All right, so let's build a platformer in Godot. So this is a brand new project. Just opened up Godot 4.3. We're going to go ahead and create a new 2D scene. We'll call this one Level 1. And let's go ahead and go to save our scene. And what we need is a couple new folders. So we'll do an assets folder. We'll do a scenes folder, and we will create a scripts folder. This will just help us stay organized. So since this is a scene, we'll go ahead and save level 1 in our scenes folder and save. So first things first, we want to import some of our assets into our assets folder. So I've gone ahead and downloaded these assets, and I will leave a link in the description where you can grab them if you want to follow along. So let's go ahead and we'll pull in our Mossy Cavern assets. Those are going to be our tiles. Okay, and then you can see here our Mossy Cavern. We've got a bunch of different folders. So our blue wizard, Mossy tile set, and this is what we're going to use to build out our level. So the first thing that we want to do is over here on our node tree, we're going to come down under level 1. And let's just add a node, and this is just going to be a regular node that doesn't do anything. It's just going to hold our tile maps. And in Godot 4.3, we have a new way of handling tile maps called Tilemap layers. So we can start with adding a tile map layer node, and we'll call this one ground. And then as soon as we create a new tile map layer, what we need to do is over here on tile set, we can click new tile set, and then you click on that. And what this is going to do is the tile sets that I'm using here for the example are 512 by 512. So by default, it's going to say 16 by 16, and we're going to change that to 512 by 512. And that's going to give us this nice grid. Now, to actually add our tile sets to, or to add our tiles to the tile set, down here at the bottom, you'll see we're in tile map mode. So we want to go to tile set, and then we can actually just drag over. So let's see which one, this one right here looks good. We'll drag this over. It says, would you like to automatically create tiles in the atlas? We'll say yes. And so if you didn't update the tile size before doing this step, it's going to be pretty weird, but it will just sort of cut them apart for you. So now we can just come over here to tile map. You can't paint on the level in tile set mode, so we got to go back to tile map mode. Make sure you get your pencil icon selected here, and then we can just sort of like start building out our level. So we can just, click the tile that you want to use, and then build out the level. Okay, so I've got my ground set up here, but my player is going to fall through the ground if we don't have some sort of collision detection set up. So let's go ahead and, at least for these tiles that have to do with the top, we're going to go ahead and set up physics data on these so that the player can collide. To do that, over here on the right, if you click tile set to bring up just where we had put 512 by 512, and under physics layers we're going to add an element. So we add this, and then this is going to create a physics layer. So what this lets us do now is we can come over to tile set and select paint, and then under select a property editor, we can select physics layer 0. So what this is going to let us do now is come in here and click which tiles should collide with the player. Now you'll see up here we've got on these top 3 tiles, the actual like collision goes a little bit outside. So what we want to do is, there we go. So we're going to bring this down some, and this is going to change the shape that we apply to these tiles. So now we've got a little bit of grass poking up through the top, and that's going to be nice because our player is not going to be like standing in the air above the grass. And so that's all we need to do for right now to make our ground solid. So we will, keep building out the level here. So I want to add like some stuff above here and make it kind of like feel more like a sort of like a cave. So let's add in another tile map. Let's see, this one might be good actually. Let's say yes, we want to create a new tile map. So now you'll see here we've got this like long vertical one, which would be really cool if it were horizontal instead. So what we can do is we can right click on these and we can create alternative tiles. And what this is going to do is it's going to put these over here on the right hand side as alternative tiles, and Godot's actually going to let us like change a little bit about these. So I actually want to do both sets, and you just go down each one of these and just create the alternative. All right, and then see here we've got all of these. So what we can do now is, I think under rendering. So Godot has this flip H and flip V, so that's flip horizontal and flip vertical, and so we can change them like that if we want. It also has this transpose, which is interesting. So like if you transpose and flip vertical, it's actually going to make it be this horizontal shape. So this is how, like, if you've only got a few tiles, you can change their orientation from the same tile map. It's a little cumbersome to do all of these, but you just go through one at a time and flip them all. All right, now that they're all flipped, we can hop back over into tile map mode and make sure our pencil is selected, and we can start to paint these on. Okay. So now that we've got our ground layer set up, what we're going to want to do is create another tile map layer. And let's just, while we're in here, let's go ahead and go to our project settings, and then we can change our background color. So right over here under rendering environment, then we have our default clear color. And so like, let's just pick something that's kind of, maybe like a dark greenish blue. That's kind of a cool color. So that'll just be more interesting than just that boring gray. So now what we can do is we'll create another tile map layer. And again, we need to create a new tile set. We'll open it up, 512 by 512. And let's do tile set. Hanging plants looks like a good option. So we can kind of change our margins here a little bit to get the things into position how we would like them. So I'm going for this one right here. So I can go ahead and tile map, and then we will be able to like hang these in different places. And we'll hang a couple of these too. And then, so we'll call this one hanging plants. And then we'll drag this above the ground. And so what that's going to do is it's going to give us this nice, like, it's going to put the plants behind the ground tile set. And then so we can do one more. Let's do another tile map layer. Let's call this one background. And what we can do here is, again, we'll create a new tile set, open it up, 512 by 512. And which one do we want for this? Probably this one, the background decorations. And then, so we can just grab some of these like this. And we'll just throw these kind of randomly around the level. And you can see here it's kind of grabbed another set, another edge of a tile. So we'll just try to like get those to be underneath as much as we can. And then we'll grab this, move it back there, and then we can actually go into visibility and modulate, and we'll bring our opacity down on those. And then I'll just give it kind of like a nice, cool, like little look. So you can kind of, you know, mess around with this as much as you want. Like we could add, you know, one more node if we want, just to call, you know, plants in the front. Again, new tile set, 512 by 512. And for this one, I think what has the little plants? Is it decorations? Yeah, so we'll pull in decorations. So yes. And then here you can kind of grab our little plants. Now, what's interesting here is our plants. Well, first of all, I think we need to adjust this because we've got this little edge of this guy coming in, and we don't really want him coming in. So we'll just change margins over a little bit and do that. So we're just getting our plant and not having that extra stuff. So what we can do is see how these plants are kind of up in front and floating in the air. We don't want them floating in the air. So what we can do is we'll come over here on the right hand side with our plant level selected, and we can transform, and we can just bring that down. I guess up. So we just change the y-axis here until we get them kind of sitting where we want them to sit, which would be sort of like right around the top of that grass. And then we'll just drag them right below ground, and now they look nice, like they're coming out of the ground. So we can, you know, check out our level. I think this looks pretty good. Oh, you know what? Let's fix this. So our hanging plants, we're kind of catching the side of this here. So again, maybe we need to adjust our tile set margins a little bit. So we'll bring that back that way some. Yeah, and then now we don't have quite the same issues with our hanging plants here. So we can probably also do that with our background. So we grabbed this one. Yeah, and it's bringing in just a little bit of that. So we'll bring the margin over just a tad. And then that's going to move them all a little bit, but they're going to look way nicer now. So now what we're going to do is we are going to create a character to run around in this scene and, you know, do some fun stuff. So the first thing we need to do, we've got our blue wizard assets already in here. So that's perfect. So let's go ahead and create a little plus sign that's going to bring up a new scene. So for this, we're going to click other node. And since this is a character, we want to do a character body 2D node. That's going to have a lot of benefits that the just regular nodes or area 2D nodes don't have. You'll see you get a little error message here, and that just means that it has no shape, it has no collider. So first thing we want to do is we want to be able to see our character. So let's go ahead and add another node, and for this one we'll do animated sprite 2D, and that's going to allow us to create an animated character. So he's going to walk, he's going to have idle, you know, jump animations, things like that. So every animated sprite 2D has to have sprite frames associated with it. So we'll come over here and click new sprite frames. This is going to bring up this nice little panel down here where we can say, you know, idle. So we'll grab here two blue wizard idle, and we'll just drag all these in. So this is our character, our little wizard guy. Again, the link to download all the sprites and everything that I'm working with is in the description. But we bring this up, and you can see here we have all of the frames of the animation. We can play the animation, and he kind of like he winks a little bit and does his thing. It's a little slow, so maybe we'll bring this up to like 10 frames per second. Yeah, that's a little bit better. Now we have our idle. We're gonna want this to autoplay, so this little icon right here will make it autoplay, and he'll be good to go. So while we're here, let's go ahead and create a couple of other animations. We know we're gonna want him to walk, and we're gonna want him to jump. To create the new animation, we're gonna click this little icon right here, and that's going to give us, we can go walk, and then we can go jump. And then for each of these, we're going to want to drag in our frames. Cool. And then we'll go ahead and just make each of these 10 frames per second also, just so they all kind of, look about the same speed. You see him walking, we go idle, he's idle. All right, cool. So now we need to do a couple more things. We've still got our error up here, so let's go ahead and add a collision shape 2D. That's what it wants, is the collision shape 2D, and we have to assign it a shape. So over here we'll click new circle shape 2D. That's going to give us the shape, and then we can just sort of drag this on our player. And actually, the circle shape works really well for like small characters, but I also like to do the capsule shape for characters like this because you can kind of stretch it out a little bit more, and the collider doesn't actually have to be on the edges of the character. You can kind of be inside them a little bit, especially here on the sides. Like, we don't want to go too small, but you also, if you go like this, then when he gets too close to an enemy or something, he's going to die, and it won't really make much sense why he died. So a shape that kind of gets close, maybe slightly inside, is really what you want. And then we're set. So let's go ahead and just rename this node to player, and we can save, and we'll save that in our scenes folder, and we're good. So now we go back over to our level, and then we can scroll down to scenes, and we'll see our player right here, and we can just sort of drag him in. Now he's looking pretty cool, but if we play, and this is just saying what's the scene that you want to be, the default. So we'll just select current for here. If we play, you'll see it's like it doesn't really look how we want it to look, right? Like, we can't see the character or anything. So if we go back into our player node, what we can do is we'll add our camera in here, and with the camera attached to the player like this, you can see kind of around it that this purple line, this is like what the camera sees. So now if we click play, we should see our character like within the camera view. So he's kind of big, so like let's change our zoom a little bit, make him a little bit smaller in the screen, and then when we hit play, so now this looks a little bit better, but we can't move him or anything. So he's looking really good, he's playing his idle animation, that's awesome, but we can't move him around, and that's going to not be very fun to play. So we click up here on our player node, and then this little icon right here will let you attach a script. And this is what's really cool about Godot, is they've already got this template for basic movement. So we can just come over here and select our scripts folder, and we'll create the script, and that's going to give us this awesome pre-written script that's going to sort of let us do a lot of the stuff that we want to do with the player by default. So if we go ahead and just play this, you can see now we can move him left and right with the arrow keys. We can hit space and he jumps, but it's kind of like it doesn't like feel very good. It's really slow. So we're going to want to adjust some of these values. So for speed, let's change speed to 600. For jump velocity, let's just change that to 1900. And just that by itself is going to make a big difference in just how he feels. That's actually really, really high jump velocity. So I think what we're going to want to do is come up into project settings here, and then there should be an option under physics for default gravity. So let's just change default gravity to 3000, and that's going to give him like a more responsive jump. So let's see if he flies off the map this time. Yeah, there we go. There we go. So now he can run around, he can jump. We're getting somewhere. But he doesn't play any other animations, and he doesn't move left and right when we move left and right. So one thing we can do just to get started here is, you'll notice in this script it's using UI accept, UI left, UI right. These are like the default sort of like UI controls that are built into Godot. And I always like to come into my project settings and go to the input map, and here you can like define your different controls. So we can do things like left, right, jump. So once we have left, right, and jump in here, we can hit the little plus sign, and that's going to listen for input. So we can hit left arrow. We can also take an opportunity here to make our WASD keys work. So we'll hit A, and then we can do the same thing for right. We'll do a right arrow, and then we'll do D. Jump, we'll do space, and then we can also do W, and we'll do up. And that, you know, gives the player some options. So now we have left, right, and jump. What we can do now is we can come in here and say jump, left, and right. And now if we play, we should be able to move around and jump with the keys that we just assigned. So that's going to be a little bit easier to test now. You can sort of pick what controls that you would like to use. So to make his animation change, we can come into our player script here, and let's just start with the left and right. So we can say if velocity.x is less than 0, then we want to use our animated sprite. So we can just drag that in for reference. Then we can say flip H, and that's going to flip the sprite horizontally. And then we can say if velocity.x is greater than 0, drag in our reference, and flip H equals false. And the reason that we don't want to do else here instead of writing the expression again is because if it is equal to 0, we don't want to flip it at all. We kind of want to just like leave him standing the direction he was facing. So now if we play, you can see he turns left and right. And you can also see when he jumps, he turns left and right in midair. So that's great. So now let's hook up our animations for walk and idle. So if velocity.x is not equal to 0, so he's walking, then we want our animated sprite to play our walk animation. Else, meaning he's not walking, animated sprite, play our idle animation. So he looks pretty good. He's running around, he's jumping. He's kind of slow though, so like it might be cool if we could hold shift to make him run. That would be cool. So let's go into our player script again. Right before this left and right here, we can add a new variable, and we'll call it run multiplier. And we'll just set that to 1 by default. So we can say if input dot is action pressed, and we'll do run. We haven't actually set that one up yet, so we'll go ahead and set that up in a second. Multiplier, and we'll just double the speed. Else run multiplier equals 1. So this will basically say if we've pressed run, the run button, then do that. So there is no run button yet though. So we got to hop back into our input map, and we'll call this run. And for this one, I'll do left shift and then save. Now what we need to do is we need to use our run multiplier. So we'll just copy the run multiplier, and then here we want to multiply times our run multiplier where we're calculating speed. So now if we play it, we should see him go back and forth. And if we hold shift, he will go twice as fast. So that's kind of a nice little way to get him scooting around. It looks like he's actually going behind the background here. So one thing we can do real quick is go into our ordering. We want our character to be like, what, like level 6, or let's do level 10 even, just to make sure that like he's like way out in front. Save, and then he shouldn't go behind the background now, but he's in front of the grass. So if he's level 10, we can then come in here to our tile maps and ground, and we can make the ground be, let's see, level 11. It's 11. And let's see if that makes him go behind the grass there. Yeah, so now he's behind the grass. Okay, perfect. So he's in front of everything else and he's behind the grass. And that's it. That's, you know, you have a character, he moves around, he jumps, he can stand on the ground, and yeah, so he's ready for more fun. So one thing that you may wonder about Godot is, how do we persist data from level to level or throughout the game? You know, keep sounds from disappearing, you know, when their source disappears, things like that. And so they actually have this really cool thing called Autoloads. And so what I like to do is, you know, basically I'll create just a regular node like this, and then call it Game Manager. And what this lets me do is I can add a script to it. We'll go into our scripts folder, say open, and create just an empty script. And so what this lets you do is, you know, you can save it as a scene, and then you can come in here and you can say, you know, coins equals 0, score equals 0, and you're going to be able to save this information through your whole game. And the way you do that is you come into project settings and you select it as an auto load. So we can just call this Game Manager, and then we will find it in our scenes, and then Game Manager, open that and add. And now this will get loaded behind the scenes when we play our game. So as you can see, it's not actually loaded into our level at all. But when we go to play our game, we can come over here to the remote tab, and then you can see the Game Manager is right here. And then over on the right, we can see coins and score. And so that's going to get loaded in wherever we go. And what's cool is, you know, since this is an auto load, we can actually access it from anywhere in the game. So if we were in our player script here, we could, you know, game manager .coins, right? So if we wanted to print that game manager .coins, then it's going to print into our console. See all the zeros? So every frame it's going to print how many coins it has into our console. So now we can access Game Manager and any kind of methods or values that we want to store inside our Game Manager. We can access from any script in any level, and that will always be there and always be loaded. All right, so we got our Game Manager, we have a player, and we have a level. Now let's get some coins going on. So to start with, we want to find our assets here. We'll drag in our coin assets and link in the description if you want to grab the same thing I have and follow along. So to create a coin, we'll go ahead up here and so we'll click other node and animated sprite 2D. So this needs an animation. So we'll click new sprite frames, open up our sprite frames, and then instead of just dragging them in like we did the animation for our character, we're going to click this little icon right here. That's going to let us create animation from a sprite sheet. So see, these all have, you know, each frame together in the same file. So basically this brings up this, and we can set, you know, horizontal is 5. So there's 5 coins there, and vertical is 1. And so once it's drawn these little boxes around our stuff, then we click them in order that we want to add them in and click add 5 frames. So you can see here now, if we open up our sprite frames, that we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and we can just play that, and we've got our nice little animation there. So we want to autoplay this so it's just always on, so we can do that. And now we need to add a area 2D, and this is what's going to allow us to set up a collision. So for our child node of our area 2D, we're going to create a collision shape 2D, and this one will work really well as a circle, and bring that in a little bit right around our coin. Yeah, so let's go ahead and save this under scenes, and actually let's change this to coin, just so it'll name it right for us. Coin in scenes and save. Now we can come back to our level and we can drop these coins in. And he's so tiny, so tiny. So let's go back and maybe make him a little bit bigger. So we'll go transform and we'll just scale. Let's do like 4. Yeah, that feels like a little better. Yeah, there we go. That's a little bit nicer size. So let's just see what that looks like in game. And so see, there we got our coin and it's spinning around. Perfect. So what we can do is can actually just hit Control D, and that will let us duplicate. Control D, and if you hold shift as you drag, then it'll stay exactly in the same like horizontal position. So then we can Control D and just grab all of those, move them over here, and now you'll see like we're starting to get a lot of coins built up over here. So what I like to do to just kind of organize stuff is just, you know, create another node, and we'll just call this coins, and then we can drag all of these coins in, and so now that keeps them kind of like in a folder for us. So now what we can do is if we grab these and we Control D, it's going to keep them all in our folder. And so we can just sort of scatter these around our level however we see fit. And so now we've got this cool little scene where we have coins, but they don't do anything yet. So we can't actually pick them up. So what we need to do is we need to create a script. And the first thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that our player is in a group. So we can go over here to node, groups, and then we can add a group. We'll call this player, and we'll make it a global group. And that's just going to make sure that our player is in the global group player. So for our coins, we'll go ahead and save our scene, hop back over to coins, and we will add a script. We will change this to the scripts folder, open and create. And this is going to give us this nice little situation here. So we can grab our area 2D and come over to signals. And so signals are just a way to, you know, if like it's kind of like an event, like if something happens, it'll trigger a signal. So for this one, we want to do body entered, and we will connect. All right. And so what we can do here is this will basically trigger anytime a rigid body enters our area. And so what we want to do is we want to make sure that the body is in group player. So if this is our player that ran into it, then we will game manager dot coins plus equals 1, and that will create the extra coin in the game manager. Because remember, in our game manager, we have coins set up here. Then we can also give the player some points. Oh, which actually this needs to be coins, not coin. And then we can also give the player some points. So we can say plus equals, let's say 100 points. And then we want to make the coin disappear. So the way that you make the coin disappear is you call this function queue_free, and that basically just, deletes the coin from existence. So now if we go and play, and we can come over to remote and look at our game manager, and inspector. Yeah, so coins and score. So let's see, does our coins and score go up? Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom. You can see over here, as I'm collecting coins, the coins and the score are both going up. Sweet. Oh, and I fell. Okay. So, besides the fact that I can't play my own game, it looks like we are in business with our coins and our score both going up. So now we should, put these into our scene somehow, right? So like, it would be sweet to have the coins and the score values both show up on the screen. So let's go ahead and add a new canvas layer. And this is going to work as our interface. So basically this blue line here represents the viewport. This is what you see on the screen. And you can come in here and add a child node. So in Godot, label is what's generally used for text. So we can call this coins value, and we can come over here and we'll go theme overrides, font sizes. Oh, we want to make this a little bigger, so like, I don't know, 60. And then let's just give it like a default value of 0. So it's going to be our coins. And then let's go ahead and create another one, label, and this will be our score value. All right, okay. And then we'll also give that a 0, and then theme overrides, font sizes. Let's do like 30 for this one, make it a little smaller. All right, and then we actually want to align these a little better. So like, let's horizontal align it to the right, and then we'll do this guy to the right. Give it a little more room. All right, so now we've got our scene set up with these things. So like if we play, we'll see, we have our values up here, but they're not changing. So what we can do to change them is hop back over to our game manager script. And so let's just play this real quick and we'll look at the remote and see where our game manager is. So it's underneath this thing called root. And then we have our canvas layer, right, with coin values, score values. So what we actually need to do is we actually need to be able to access this from our game manager. And so the way that we do that is we'll just call this GUI, and then we can save branch as scene, and then we'll save. And so we can actually delete this now from our level, and we can add it to our game manager, like so. So now we have the GUI underneath our game manager. So what we can do is we can create a new function, and this is going to be process function. So this basically runs every frame, and then we can say, okay, so our GUI coins value dot text should be equal to coins, right? But coins is going to be a number, so we want to make sure that coins is a string since we're updating text. So this basically points to the coins value inside of our GUI, and then we're also going to want to do another one for the score that will update the score. So this is as the score changes and as the coins change, this will update our user interface in our scene. So we'll save our game manager and then play, and then let's see if this works. And indeed it does. So as we go and collect our coins, we're getting points added to our score, and we are also getting the coin value updated up there. If we want to, we can make our GUI look a little bit nicer. So maybe we want to add, an image of our coins. So we can create a new child node, and we'll do another animated sprite 2D. And for animation, new sprite frames, open up sprite frames, and then again we're gonna pull our coins over from our sprite map. So same thing we did before. Add frames, and then we'll scale this up a little bit. And then we can put it right there. And we'll just, make it look a little nicer. And so since we're not actually triggering this, making it autoplay, we could make it autoplay like that. And then it would just always spin up there, but it kind of can be distracting a little bit. So if we do it like this, then we kind of just get the icon up there that doesn't move. But if you want to make it spin, you can really easily just hop into your sprite frames and click autoplay, and then it should spin in the interface. Okay, so we got this cool little level here with our guy, but when he runs off the edge, he just kind of falls forever. And that's not really what we want. We want him to die when he runs off the edge. So what we can do is we can come into our level and add an area 2D. So what that's going to allow us to do is create a death area. Death area. And we got a little error here. It's got no shape, so that means it wants a collision shape. We'll do that, and then we'll select our rectangle as our collision shape, which is great, but it's like everything's so tiny. So let's go ahead and just give it some scale. I just unclicked this so they don't match, because we don't necessarily need to scale, the same way in both directions. So give that 10, give that 5, and now we've got a little collision shape area. So let's see, we'll go ahead and scale this a little further. So we can grab our scale tool up here so we can do this visually, and then we'll just make it really big. We want it to go across the whole level. So here we can see we've got our collision shape, we've got our death area. That's awesome. And so save that, and then we come into our player, and then our player script, we want to actually add this node. We want to do body entered, and we want to connect it to our player. And so this will give us our death area body entered, and we can click connect. So this is basically saying, if the player enters the death area, then what do we want to do? Well, because there's going to be a couple of different ways that our player can die, we'll create a function called kill player, and we'll just put pass there for now. So if they entered the death area, we want to call kill player, right? And for our player death scenario or whatever, we're going to want to respawn them. So if we come into our level here, we can create a respawn point. And this can just be a node 2D. We don't want to do a regular node because that doesn't have any transform values for where it's placed on the screen, but node 2D will. And we can just call this, respawn point. And we'll just put that over here around where he is. And then what we want to do is you can come over here, right click, and access as unique name. And that's going to be nice because then when we refer to it in our script, we're going to be able to just call it %respawn point. And I'll show that to you. So we'll save this, come over to our player script, and then when we kill the player, we want to set the player's position equal to respawn point dot position. And then we also want to reset the animated sprites flip. So if they're, facing the opposite direction of where they should normally respawn to, then we want to make sure that the flip H is equal to false so that they load in how they normally would. So now if we try this, we should be able to jump off this cliff, and then it respawns us back at the beginning. Now, one thing we notice is the camera follows us down, right? Which we probably don't want the camera to follow us down. So what we can do is we can come into our camera 2D here, and then under the inspector, you will see limit. And so see here, bottom is like this huge number. Let's just change that to 800 and see how that works. So now if we play it, it should constrain our camera so that the guy can fall off the screen, right? And if we wanted to let it fall a little further, we could come in here to our death area and we can move that down some more, right? And that'll just give it a little more time, after he starts to fall before he actually respawns. And that looks nice. So not only can we do that there, but we should be able to fall into one of these pits here because the death area goes across the whole level and respawn back at the beginning. All right, so that's how you kill your player. No platforming game is complete without enemies. We're going to create an enemy here that can kill our player. So to start with, we're just going to pop open a new scene. And we're going to actually use the character body 2D again. So we're going to say other node and character body 2D. And this is just going to let us, move it around more easily. So just like we did before, we'll do animated sprite 2D. We need to create sprite frames, so new sprite frames. And this one should be easier because we just really need one state for our enemy. So again, the assets, there's a link. So you should already have this if you followed the other tutorials. But let's do the orange slime. And so we'll just grab all of these frames, drop them in, and we've got this guy. And we want to autoplay. And let's see what that looks like. It's kind of jumpy, so maybe we'll autoplay and give it like 10 frames per second. It's not too bad. 20. Yeah, 20 is nice. It's nice and smooth. So once you get your animation how you want it, we need to add an area 2D because this is going to collide with our player. And then it also needs a collision shape 2D. For collision shape, for this one, we'll just use a circle. That's fine. We'll draw it, around like that. Let our player, if our player just like barely touches the side of it, we don't want to penalize them. But that's basically all we need to set this guy up. We'll go ahead and save him as scene. Oh, actually, let's change his name to enemy. Save him as a scene. And you can also add in this raycast 2D node. So what raycast is going to let us do is if our enemy moves back and forth, we want to be sure that we can identify when he's moved too far, right? So basically like the edge of a platform, we want him to be able to turn around and go the other way. So we'll go ahead and add a script to this guy. Select our scripts folder, enemy, okay, and create. And we actually don't need all of this stuff in the physics process. So this is all extra stuff we don't really need. We will want a few, parameters. So we'll do a constant, we'll do speed. Let's make him go 300, and we'll keep track of if he's moving right and if he can switch or not. So that's if he can switch positions, and we'll just start. He can. We'll say yes. You can. So now we need a function physics process, and with the physics process, it's really similar to the regular process function, except for it's only dealing with physics. First things first, let's set up our movement left and right. So we'll say if he's moving right, or I guess if moving right is less than 0, right? So he's not moving right, he'd be moving left in this case. We'll do our velocity x equals speed times -1. And then we also want to set our raycast up. So here we can drag in our raycast 2D for a reference. And then the target position is going to be where the raycast is looking. So basically, if we shot a laser out of our enemy in a direction, you know, where is it looking for a collision? And so we'll give that, you know, -270 and 250. And that's just going to draw a line to that point. And then we can go else. And then we'll just copy this because it's basically going to be really similar. And instead of -1, we want +1. Instead of -270, we want +270. So this is going to determine how he moves right and left. And if we want to go ahead and drop one of these enemies into our scene, it should be in our scenes folder, enemy. And we'll just drop that guy in. And we'll come back over to our script. So if our raycast is not colliding and he can switch, then we want to change moving right times equals -1, can switch equals true, or actually can switch equals false, else can switch equals true. And then at the bottom of this, we need to call move and slide. And what that's going to do is actually apply our movement to the character body. So now if we hit play, you can see he's coming for us. Oh no. Well, nothing's gonna happen. Now we need to make sure that when he hits us, he actually kills us. Because if he doesn't actually do anything, then there's not really any point in him being there. So we'll come over to our area 2D, we'll go to node, and then we want to do body entered. So double click that. Okay, on area 2D body entered. Okay, looks good. Connect. So again, we have our player in a group called player. So we can say if body is in group player, then we want to call the kill player function that we set up earlier, right? So we should be able to run into him, and then it kills us and it respawns us somewhere else, right? So looks like this is working now. We can't attack him though. We'll get to that later, but for right now, he moves back and forth on the platform, and then when we hit him, he kills us and we respawn back at our spawn point. And there you go. That's how you create an enemy. Okay, so we have an enemy in our level, but we can't kill him or do anything to him. So let's start off. Let's just add a couple more of these guys in here. Okay, so we've got some enemies in our level now that we can try to kill, but we need some sort of way to kill them. So let's give our guy like some magic. So we'll create a new node. We will see what kind of node. We'll do a node 2D, and we'll just call this node magic. Go ahead and save it as a scene. And we want to add a child node, and this is going to be a CPU particles 2D node. And what this lets us do is, if we zoom in really far, you can see it's like already emitting particles out of this thing, and they're all falling down towards the ground. So let's go through and work on some of the settings here. So for the amount, let's go ahead and just give it like 2000, and that's just gonna like give it a ton of stuff to work with. Lifetime, we can bring it down to 0.3. We don't want one shot because we do want this to loop. Our speed scale, we can do like 0.35. That's going to give it like, you know, like a different variant on the speed. Randomness, let's do 0.86. And these values can be like whatever you want them to be. They're just, you know, values that I found to be helpful. You know, you can kind of like shape your magic however you want to. So emission shape, let's do a sphere. And then for our sphere radius, let's see, we'll do like 86. All right, so now we got a lot bigger sphere. So as we go through here, we can see we got direction, and let's do a spread of 21. And then our gravity. So you can see everything's getting pulled down right now. So if we say, you know, gravity 0, it's just going to be all in the same place there. So we need to do gravity 3000 on the X. And that's going to give us, this guy's going to like shoot it out of his hands, right? So it's going to kind of give it like that horizontal feel, like it's flying through the air. And we can also go into like angular velocity. See, we'll do like a minimum 515. It's not going to change it too much, it just gives us some variation in there. Linear acceleration, so over here we can do, you know, the maximum, let's do like 60. Again, it's just giving it variation, so this is like the min and max. Let's see, we can do scale, so that would give it some more variation as well, so we can do like 11. So now we've got like a little bit bigger particles. So we can do like the color. What's cool about the color is you can do like a color ramp here and do like a new gradient. And so, you know, let's make him like shoot rainbows. And then for this last one here, we can actually just drop the opacity down. And so that way it kind of, like fades out, so you can see it kind of like towards the side here, it's fading out as it's going further back. I'm just dragging these up a little further and drag that guy all the way down. And so now we've got this like kind of like fade situation going on, which is kind of cool. So we can mess with some other stuff if you just want to like you know, add some other values in and just see what they do. You know, it can give you like different sorts of vibes going on, but that's good. So we have our magic. So now we want to create a magic area, and so our magic area is going to be, we'll do a new node, and it's going to be an area 2D, and then we're going to call this, you know, magic area. We'll go ahead and save into our scenes. And so our magic area is going to obviously have our magic in it. So we need to pull that in. Very cool. And then we also can like set up some other stuff. So like for instance, we're going to want a collision shape 2D. This is what's going to allow it to collide with our enemy. And then we have to give that, you know, a shape. So we'll do circle and then just kind of draw like right in there. You can see kind of, it's hard to see with all the particles, but you can kind of tell, you know, where it is. And then we also want to set up a timer, because if we shoot this magic out into the level, it'll go across the entire level if we let it. So let's just set this timer to 2 seconds. Save, and we're good to go. So now what we need to do is we need to go back to our player script. We need to add the ability to shoot the magic, right? So here we've got, you know, move and slide, but we're gonna need a magic button. So we'll go back into our input map and we need to add magic as an option. And then here you can kind of decide what you want. You know, I'll do the left mouse button is a good one. E would work. You can do both of those. And so now we can say if input dot is action just pressed, and then you can see magic shows up here as an option now. Then what do we want to do? We need a magic node, and we want to instantiate it. So we're going to load, and then to get our magic area path, we can actually just drag it in, and that's going to write the path to our magic area. So that gives us like this the node that we're going to instantiate. And so now to instantiate it, we need new magic equals magic node dot instantiate. You gotta spell it right. Always have to double check my spelling on it. Instantiate. And then depending on what direction our character is facing, it's going to depend on which direction we want our magic to face, right? We're going to need to go over into our magic area, and we're going to need to make a script. So let's pop back over to magic area and add a script to this guy. In our scripts folder, let's say create, and now we have area 2D. So really, when the magic first is instantiated, right? So like we've gotten to this point where we're going to instantiate the magic node, but what happens when it comes into existence, right? So let's go ahead and set up some properties. So set up a speed for it. We'll give it a velocity. We're going to want player object and a direction, and we'll set that to 1. Really, for our player object, it's not really our player object that we want. It's the animated sprite player object. And so we'll get the node player, and then inside player we want to get the node of animated sprite 2D. And then we also want to set up our timer while we're in here. So we can grab a reference to our timer, and then we're going to want to connect our timer to a script. So connect, and then we can say timeout on timer timeout. And this is just the name of our script that we're going to, or our function that we're going to call. So what do we want to happen when the timer times out? Remember, cue free, we'll delete our magic. So now this timer, it's going to count down for 2 seconds, and then when it times out, it's going to delete our magic. So we'll go ahead and click one shot also. Fix any typos. Okay, so in our player script, we're instantiating this node. It's going to create this node where we're grabbing the animated sprite of the player. We're starting our timer, and now in process, we need to check our direction. So if our direction equals 1, then we want to set our velocity. So velocity equals vector 2 minus 1 0 dot rotation degrees times speed times delta. And now what we can do is we'll grab our magic, and then our CPU particles 2D, and we want to set the gravity. So remember when we set up our gravity before, we set it to 3000, right? So if our direction changes, then what that does is basically we grab this thing and we want +1 and -3000 here. And then to actually apply that velocity, we're going to say position plus equals velocity. And so this is going to, depending on what our direction is, it's going to basically send this thing flying one way or the other. So let's come back over to our player. And here we can now that we've instantiated this, so we can say if, and then we'll get a reference to our animated sprite 2D, flip H equals, well, let's do false actually. So we're basically checking to see if the sprite is flipped horizontally. Then we can do new magic dot direction equals -1, else new magic dot direction equals 1, right? So awesome. So now we've instantiated this and we can tell which direction it's flying, but like, where does it come from? Right? So that's the big question here, is where does it come from? And so what we need to do is we need to come into our player, and we're going to create a new node 2D, and we're going to call this magic spawn point. And that's just going to naturally just put it right in the middle of our player, which actually works totally fine. So we'll save that, and then in here we're going to want to make sure that when we instantiate, we are new magic dot set position, and we can actually right click, we'll access unique name, and then we can say magic spawn point dot global. And this is important. You want to access the global transform, because otherwise, as your player moves, the magic is going to spawn like as your player's moving, and it won't look right. And so we want to set that position, and then we need to set the parent of our new magic. All right, let's see what this gives us. We can click our mouse, and look at that. We can shoot rainbows. They don't do anything yet, but we can shoot them, and that's what matters, right? So cool. So let's make them do something. So we come into our magic area, and we're going to do something really similar to what we did with the enemies. So let's actually, since we're targeting our enemy, let's go ahead over here to groups, and let's go ahead and set up a new enemy group. We'll make it global. We'll say okay. And so now our enemy is in that group. So when we're in our magic area, we're going to go, I think this was the area 2D. Yep. So we can go node signals area entered. And then we'll say connect. So here we get this area variable passed in. So if the area is in group enemy, well, you know what we can do? We can give our player some points for killing the enemy. Let's give them 1,000 points. Okay, and then we want to actually just remove the enemy. So we'll just get the parent. So since the area is what's colliding, right? And if we look at our enemy, we'll see we have the area is what's colliding, but its parent is the actual enemy itself. And we just want to delete that. So we'll just go ahead and just delete the enemy as soon as it's hit with our rainbow. Okay, so if we want our enemy to collide, we need to come over here to collision, and we're going to set the layer and mask to 4. We're going to do the same thing over here on our enemy. So we'll go collision to 4. We'll save. The last step is we just want to make our magic itself disappear when it collides with an enemy. We also want to hop over to our enemy, and then on our area 2D, make sure we have that group selected as enemy as well. All right, and now we have fully functioning magic, so we can shoot and kill our enemies with our magic rainbows. All right, fantastic. Okay, so we have our game pretty much running, but it's kind of boring. There's no music, there's no sound effects or anything like that. And if we just drop nodes into our level for those sort of things, you can run into some issues. Like when you switch scenes, like if you're loading a new level or something like that, everything will get cut off and like abruptly like stopped. Similarly, like if you're picking up coins or things like that, you don't want to attach your sound to your coin because the coin gets removed from the scene and the sound would get cut off before it had a chance to fully play. So to deal with that, we use the game manager. So we set up the game manager earlier with our GUI. What we can actually do is go in here and create a couple of nodes. So we have our audio stream player, and let's just add 2 of these. And we'll call the first one, background music, and we'll call the second one sound effects. And what's cool about having these in the game manager is just how we can access the game manager from anywhere in our game. The background music and the sound effects will always be available to trigger, right? So what we can do is we'll come in here to assets, and we'll go ahead and create a new folder for, let's say, sounds. And then we can just drag in. I've got a bunch of different sounds here. I'll put the link in the description for all the different packs, so you can grab these sounds yourself, or you can use, any number of sounds that you like. We'll just drag these into our sounds folder, and we're good to go. So let's start with background music. That's the easiest one because basically we come into our stream and we're just gonna drag that in there. And now we have light ambiance. And so we'll bring it down to, pretty low. Bring it down, to like there. Now we'll select autoplay on and then play our scene. And our music is playing in the background. Perfect. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to be able to play sound effects. So to do this, we're going to set up a function inside our game manager script that will allow us to basically trigger and play sound effects. So we'll go function, play sound effects, and we're going to pass it a stream. And then we want to grab our sound effects audio stream player and set the stream equal to the stream we passed in. And then we want to grab our sound effects again and just trigger play. And that's all we need to do in the game manager to have access to our sound effects player. So now what we can do is, come over to, say, coin, for instance, right? And where we get our coin, let's go ahead and just game manager dot play sound effects, and then in here we need to load a file, right? And so I've got this pickup coin number 7, and I'll just drag that in, and it's going to go ahead and put the path for the coin right there. And so we can just basically play our scene now, and we got our coin. It's a little loud, so what we may want to do is come over to our sound effects and just drop that way down. There we go. So now we have sounds every time we pick up our coins, and that's going to play through our game manager sound effects audio stream. Okay, so we have a game, we have sound, we have enemies, magic, you know, all of these things. But this probably isn't the scene you want to just open up with your game, right? You don't just like go straight into the first level. So let's create like a menu screen that we can load this level from. So we'll just go here and we'll create a new TD scene. We'll call this one main menu. We'll go ahead and save it in our scenes folder. And then remember, here is our viewport. Yeah, so we'll go ahead and add a canvas layer. And inside our canvas layer, we will do a label. And we'll just call this Rainbow Wizard. It's our name of our game. Theme overrides. You know, we'll set this to like 60. We can drag it in right there. And then we're gonna need a button. So we'll add a button. And we'll say play game. Theme overrides, font sizes. We'll do this one like 40. Give it some width, and then we can just drop it down right there. So Rainbow Wizard, play game. This is great, but we're going to need to change in our project settings. On run, we want our main scene, instead of to be level 1, remember we set that earlier, we want it to be main menu. So close. And so now what you see is you get the game, and a couple things. One, our UI from our game is showing up here, but also the actual screen isn't stretching with the game window. So what we can do to fix that is we come into project settings and we can go to window and then stretch mode instead of disabled. We'll call that canvas items. And then now this should stretch with our window. So you don't have to worry about it looking different, like, you know, however your window is oriented. Yeah, so to get rid of the UI that's showing up on our game, we'll come back into level and we can actually game manager, sorry. We'll come into game manager and we can actually disable that there. And then in our level, we don't have a script here, so we can just add a new script for level 1, and we'll just do that. And then when the level is ready, instead of this, what we can do is, remember, because it gets loaded in root, we can call /root/game manager /GUI.show. And so what this will do is, by default, we've hidden the GUI in the game manager, but in a level that we want it to show in, we can call it and show it. And so now when we hit play, you'll see it's not there anymore. But we still can't do anything. We can't load our game yet. So let's go ahead and pop over into main menu, and we'll add a script here. So again, we want to select our scripts folder and then create. All right, and then we'll grab our button, and then we can go to signals and we can say pressed. And it's going to ask, you know, where do we want to put the script? We'll say connect. And now this is going to give us our on button pressed script. So the way that you load a scene when a button is pressed is you're going to get the tree, which is our node tree on the left. And then you can change scene to file. And this is going to ask for a file. So when our first level is level 1. So we'll just drag that in there. And this tells our button basically load level 1. So now when we have our game, we can hit play and it's going to load level 1. Okay, so if you've made it this far, congratulations. We have a working 2D game with a character who can shoot magic at enemies, collect coins, earn points. He can die when he falls into pits. We've designed our level. We've created a main menu with a button that loads our game, and congratulations, you're doing a great job. So the last thing to do here is to export our game. So to export our game, we're going to go up to the top and go to Project, Export. And that's going to bring up this window, and which probably is empty if you haven't used Godot to export a game before. So we can click Add here, and then you'll see the different platforms that are available for you to export to. So we'll just click Windows here. and it's given us a bunch of errors saying that there's no template found, that we need to download the template for this. So just as it says here, export templates for this platform are missing. We're going to click Manage Export Templates, Best Available Mirror, Download and Install. Okay, sweet. Our templates have been installed. And so now we can go to Project, Export, and you'll see here now we're not getting all of those errors down there. So there's a lot of different options in here that you can go through and decide what you want to do, how, your game name, your company name, all of these things that you can fill out. But we're just going to go real quick and just export project. It's going to ask us where we want to put it. So we can just put it in here if we want. Say save. Okay, and now here we have it, our executable file, Rainbow Wizard, ready to go, and we can play it in Windows. So congratulations, you have come this far. You have created a full game and exported it for other people to play. So you can create more levels and expand on this. Obviously, huge shout out to the creators who provided the assets that we used for this tutorial. And if you have any questions, drop them in the comments and let me know. Thanks, guys. Bye.